I know everybody's story is really different, and that's part of what makes it difficult to figure out what's wrong. I've had Lyme disease pretty definitively for, it'll be 40 years this coming May. That I got it when I do a lot of outdoor stuff, and I was backpacking and sleeping out in the leaves, and woke up, and I didn't notice the rash on my leg till I got home, the circular rash, but I definitely had the flu-like symptoms. So I'm just figuring that lasted for about 6 months. The doctors couldn't diagnose it, so they didn't do anything. It did go into remission, hiding in there somewhere. And then what precipitated a second outbreak was an injury, a car accident, pretty severe whiplash. In fact, at the time, I mean, the doctors said, yeah, it was a bad accident, but you shouldn't have whiplash this bad. Like, it is, but we don't really understand why. And that probably was because I had the Lyme disease, and when I get into what happened when I was 52, that was also precipitated by an injury. So I think what happens in my body is that some kind of an injury weakens my immune system, and then that gives the Lyme a foothold to come back out. So it took me about 2 years to get it back into remission. And I'll talk a little bit about how it was. What kind of person was I before I knew I had Lyme and was, highly functioning. I don't know if this is related to Lyme disease or not. I did have ADD that I didn't notice till I was in college, and it did worsen throughout my professional career. But I did all kinds of things that I'm really happy about, because it's probably, had I put them off till retirement, it's unlikely I'd be able to do them. I mean, I have 3 degrees. I went all the way, started, bachelor's and master's and a PhD, and I studied, I call it outdoor pursuits education. So since I don't know how many people are familiar with the Ohio State University, but all of my degrees are from there. But there's 65,000 students, and I don't know how many colleges and schools. So I studied in a different part of the university at each time. But what I ended up doing, I was just doing it because I liked it. And in fact, I got support for my master's degree, financial support and assistantship. And at a Research 1 school like Ohio State, that means they pay you to go to school, which is like really freaking awesome, because they pay your tuition and they pay you enough money that you can live. It's like a living, or they did. I think those days might be past, but when I finished my master's degree, I did not want to teach high school, so I just stayed on it and got my PhD. And believe it or not, you can get a PhD in outdoor pursuits. And I taught rock climbing and caving and bicycling, and we did winter camping and all kinds of backpacking classes, and that was my job. And so that was pretty much fun. And then when you're finished with your PhD, it's not necessarily a lot of options besides becoming a professor. Although I got pregnant. Women do that. Luckily I was married, but I got pregnant before I'd finished my PhD, and we moved to Southern California and before I was finished, and I just committed to myself that I wouldn't take a full-time job until I'd finished it. And so I got that done, and there just weren't, you have to be able to go where the jobs are, and I didn't have that ability, and I ended up working in human resource development for 5 years, which was really great, and then talked my husband into moving to upstate New York, where really I still should have been very aware of Lyme disease working in upstate New York. And this still kind of haunts me. I remember having a student advisee come into my office, and she said, I have to drop out of school because it turns out I have chronic Lyme disease. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's awful. And I was empathetic, but I'm like, what's that? I didn't know anything about it, nor did I realize it was such a high-risk endemic area. I mean, in terms of infection, I'm aware of that original infection. I've been bitten by, I don't even know, 40, 15 ticks, like a lot of ticks in areas where it's pretty high risk. So I've probably been pretty lucky. And then from there, I like to move around a lot, I didn't realize I was finishing my career, but I did. We moved to East Carolina, which is on the East Coast people are familiar kind of with the Wright Brothers Memorial, and the Outer Banks is a really nice area. And that's where I finally got a good, what we call, a good job, a tenure track job as an assistant professor. And turned out I was good at it. I'm not going to go through all the stuff I did. Absolutely loved my job. I love the students. I love teaching. This is, in a resume, you try to make it as short as possible. This is my curriculum vitae. It's up to 17 pages. So, by the time I finished my career, it probably would have been 34. And it just records, you add everything that you do. But one of the things that, a couple of goals that I really wanted to meet, and I was able to meet two, really. I did get promoted to full professor. That was important to me. It really did break my heart to have to stop my career at 52. So I had just been a full professor for 2 years, and that's the point where you have the academic freedom to really speak your voice and really get involved in the projects that you think are important, and work with the students in ways that people have less control over what you do, and you can do doing some really cool things. And I guess one thing that just kind of speaks for the quality of my career, and I think this was probably helpful. I know I don't look sick, so it made it kind of hard to convince hard to convince people that I'm sick. If you have a non-visible disability, they really have to read into those medical records. And since Lyme disease is squishy, unfortunately have some other co-diagnoses to go with that. But anyway, back to the point. I do tend to wander a bit. I did get an award for, as Professor of the Year for the country, actually, in 2012. That was the year I got sick, and I was too sick to fly to California to receive the award, but I have the award anyway. So that was meaningful to me. But what I really wanted to accomplish, and I did accomplish, was to learn how to teach classes that undergraduate students, grad students go to class whether they like it or not, but that they actually, that they came prepared, ready to go, that they enjoyed class. They didn't come because there was an attendance policy. They just showed up every day ready to participate, and they loved the course. I taught primarily leisure philosophy. I moved out, I quote unquote retired from outdoor leadership pretty early. I won't go into why. Not pretty early, but I mean, like maybe 10 years, I guess at about 42. I just there's only kind of a limited amount of time you can do that. And so after that, I moved into a specialty, who knows how, in leisure philosophy. Great area to teach, and a great area to prepare you to become disabled, because I really have a lot of understanding about the work-leisure dynamic and how much we as a culture are attached to the idea of productivity and making money in terms of our own personal value. I think. I mean, I understand it intellectually. Understanding it emotionally is maybe a little bit different. But so that was a good area to be in. So that's a little bit about how it was. Now, somebody who has Lyme disease, somebody who's sick, I'll say what happened was, it was actually, my injury was caused by a massage therapist, and I have a photo in here. This is the only thing I'm going to get out of this bag. This bag contains my medical files. My hips were very, very tight, and I was a runner. I think I don't know if I mentioned I was actually a national class triathlete at one point. So I loved running. I was kind of a workout freak. Both good and bad. I've had to give that up for right now. So she wanted to fix my hips, and so if you can picture her lying on a table, and she took my legs and pulled them sideways, and then she like put traction. She was a heavy lady. She pulled, and what she did, I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I actually do believe they're separate diseases. It's hard to say if Lyme and fibro are the same or not. But those muscles were so tight, it just ripped up my, what do you call this, the psoas, all that complex that works through your pelvis. They're still not healed, but the picture I was going to pull out is just kind of stunning. It took a few months for the blood to pool down from where the injury was to the back of my legs, but they were black and blue. I mean, we're not talking about a little muscle tear. She just like ripped them apart. And I was convinced that then at that point my hips hurt so bad I thought, oh, I'm going to need a hip replacement. That was my first idea. And went to see doctor number one. X-rayed my hips. He said, you're fine, you have bursitis. Go see a physical therapist. So I dutifully did my physical therapy all summer. Went to work in August, professors being some of those lucky people that get a few months off in the summer. And I sat there literally and I looked at I had two computers and my files and my classes I had all set to teach. I had no idea what to do with any of it. I'm like, what do I do? And, I tried for a while. And, fortunately, one of the classes was a new class for me. And so I really struggled there, especially because it was in the afternoon, walking into the classroom and just not knowing what to say. And, here I was, teacher of the year. I can't teach. Ha! So, and my husband tried to convince me it was early. It's just your normal first of the semester anxiety. It'll get better. And I just said, I don't think so. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is. My boss came in and watched me try. I had a night class, and she watched me attempt to teach it. She didn't stay long, but when she walked out, I just saw her. She's just like, so everybody was really kind to me. They didn't doubt me. They weren't. I think I'm really fortunate, among people who have gotten sick and, just been told that they're lazy and all. I didn't have any of that. I had a physician who had, mostly been to see annually for physicals, but I'd had a relationship with him for 15 years. So I went to this man and I just said, look, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't teach. Something's horribly wrong. And I had really good benefits. And so they put me on Family Medical Leave Act at full pay while they sent me to a rheumatologist who sent me to the neurologist who sent me, I don't even know, 5 different doctors, brain MRIs. They checked heavy metals, they checked everything. And one of the downsides for the patient at that point is there's something desperately wrong with you, and all the tests came back normal. Except maybe I think I had a high level of vitamin B. But we don't think that's causing the problem. They was fortunate to have a psychiatrist that I was seeing prior to the injury for the ADD, and she was also just like really supportive. Having a supportive doctor, even prior to a diagnosis, I mean, I can't even imagine somebody with an unsupportive doctor. So, because I'm just starting this really long journey. But the rheumatologist, who was well respected, diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, and that was enough for the university. At that, and they did do some cognitive screening to find out, yeah, your brain is really not functioning right, so they could confirm. And my job was a thinking job, and they had benefits to put me on short-term disability with some pay. I mean, it was a drop of 2/3, but it was still not like being cut off, which was nice, and keeping health insurance, which is huge. So I'm like so much better. I know I'm so much better off than so many people that don't have any health insurance. You know, they've been, I don't know who they've been ostracized by, but your world just narrows and narrows and narrows. And I've been pretty lucky in that way. And I try, after a year off, I'm like, okay, I got a year of rest, you know, and all this stuff. And I'm trying to treat this. I chose an alternative treatment for fibromyalgia, and I was trying to get better doing all the stuff they told me to do. I said, maybe I can teach a quarter time. Let's see how that works. And I was real excited to try it. And I took, they assigned me an online class that I developed. I was actually helping the whole college develop a online program, and so I was leading that. So I developed it, I'd trained, I don't know how many different people to teach it, and I just had one little section with 25 students. It should have been a piece of cake. So I spent probably about 30 hours a week trying to do what should have been a 5 to 10 hour a week job for me. And after 4 weeks, I was in so much pain and the fatigue was so bad, I had to go to my boss and say, I can't do it. And that's a big deal in my job, because what that means is somebody else who already has a full teaching load has to take my class. And I mean, they had to do that in the fall too. They had to do it the whole year before. They couldn't hire anybody in my position because that money was locked up. That's the way universities work. But I mean, it was tough, but it was how it was. I view my illness as, in my case, and everybody's case is different, but I think of it like a three-legged stool. I've got cognitive disorders, which have been very well examined and verified at this point. But I've lost a lot of my metacognitive skills, which are the ones that control the other ones. And right now, I'm gonna guess I'm coming across as reasonably focused and articulate. And what'll happen, you know, so this is an hour that we're gonna talk, and I'll do it. I mean, I pull from that experience, you know, presenting and teaching, I perform and I just pull myself up, and I find I've got enough adrenal reserves that I can pull that out, and I can do it for a little while. Just can't do it for very long. So we've got the cognitive disorders. I have almost no short-term memory, which is, now that I've accepted it, it's kind of nice. People are like, oh, do you remember this? I'm like, nope, don't remember, nope. It's maybe kind of a relief. But not good for working. So there's cognitive disorders. Pain was huge initially. I am on medications for pain. Right now, it's not my biggest factor. My biggest problems are in the cognitive disorders and then chronic fatigue. Since I started treating Lyme last year, it's been about a year and a few months. I think I started treating Lyme in August or September. That sucker has fought back. I mean, it's kind of like it was there and it was definitely present, but once it started getting treated with antibiotics, it's definitely flared and come out in my body. I went off antibiotics at one point for a month in order to have some further testing done. And I was okay for 2 weeks. and then I was just in agony for 2 weeks as I assumed the bacteria just multiplied and had their way with me. So I was quite eager to get back on antibiotics at that point. How to get it's so confusing. The doctor has told me that there's a 100% chance that both of my daughters have it, since I wasn't aware that I had it, and I had children while I was infected. And what I tell them is, I said, you're not showing any major symptoms. The treatments aren't well developed. It's going to make it flare. You're probably, even if you got diagnosed, I wouldn't even know what. It's so hard to know, where do you start? Where do you find a good Lyme doctor? And about the best advice I've heard is find an internet group in your state and ask other people who are the good LLMDs around here. Yeah, you can email these international groups, and the names they gave me, one guy was out of date and the other person I couldn't reach. So I was like, well, that was real productive. So I did much better with, with Facebook and trying to just find people. In Utah is kind of amazing that they do have as much support as they do, given that, actually I heard that the university was doing a study on Lyme. So at one point it was denied that Lyme was present in Utah, but maybe they've changed their stance on that. Of course, I imported it, so I didn't get it here, but people do get it here.